All right, and welcome back for another week. We're jumping into emotions so you can feel all of your feelings for the next 3 weeks because we're going to be talking about emotions. So, first, I just want to say really great job on the first exam. Looking at about an 83 was the average. Some people did get 100. Awesome job. Awesome job. So great job. I looked through the questions to see if there was anything that just had a poor discrimination index, but really everyone did well, and you know, I don't really see any questions worth throwing out. So great job. Hopefully these videos are helpful. Hopefully some of the quiz review at the end of them is helpful. And I loved reading all your blogs so far. It's cool to see what made a really good teacher for you, and like you all figured out, so many of you have had that connection with the teacher and they were really passionate about your learning and your education, and that made a great teacher. And the teachers who were not so great weren't so kind and just were very dry and just didn't really connect with you. So thanks for sharing that. We're going to jump in to emotions today. Okay, so we're going to talk about emotions in this chapter, and really what is an emotion? It's feelings, whether they're positive or negative. It's physiological responses like your heart beating faster or your brain doing different things. It's cognitions that elicit or accompany feelings and physiological changes. So we're going to talk about emotions and how they are really our first form of communication. Two different kinds of emotions we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about primary emotions and complex. Primary you might see listed as basic emotions. And these are at birth, very early within the first year emotions. Things like fear and joy and disgust and surprise. Okay, then we move into complex or secondary or self-conscious emotions. And these are really emotions directed towards ourselves. They involve damage or enhancement to self, and they really require a sense of self, so it takes a little bit of time to do this. These are things like pride or embarrassment or jealousy or shame. So let's talk about our emotions from 3 different perspectives. Let's start with biological. So from a biological perspective, our emotions are innate and universal. Facial expressions of basic emotions are the same in many different cultures. Really, all infants begin to smile at about 46 weeks, a little less than a year after birth, regardless of how long they've been exposed to smiling faces. Our emotions are really rooted in human evolution, and they're actually based on anatomical structures. So each emotion is expressed by a different specific group of facial muscles. So just an example I have in here, the left cerebral hemisphere controls the expression of joy, while the right controls fear. Let's talk about emotions from a learning perspective. So when a baby smiles and really has a positive interaction with its caregiver, the interactions are going to increase. So the more you smile, the more you're going to get held. That feels good. You're going to be taken care of. You're going to smile more. So that's where we think about it from a learning standpoint. Children may learn to fear through classical conditioning, like fear the doctor who gives them a painful shot at their first visit. So learning can really affect our emotions as well. Finally, from a functionalist perspective, really specific emotions emerge with age. So the basic purpose of emotions is to influence behavior. So we establish, we maintain, or we change relationships with our environment to achieve a goal. That makes it functional. So we really want to emphasize environmental influences, and our memories of past emotions shape how we respond to new situations. So let's get back into primary emotions for a little bit. They're present at birth, those things like disgust or distress or interest. And really that first smile happens, okay? This starts to increase due to high levels of brain activity. So around 2 to 7 months, anger and sadness start showing up on our faces. And a social smile really starts at about 2 or 3 months. And again, that social smile is, wow, when I smile, my parents come over and hold me and care for me. So I think I'm going to keep doing that. We also start to see surprise and joy. And at around 7 months, the last basic emotion happens, which is fear. And we have 2 primary fears around 7 months: strangers and separation from our caregiver. Let's get into complex emotions. So these really aren't evident to about 2.5, and these are really dependent on a sense of self and cognitive skills. So simple embarrassment typically is the first one to appear, and then pride shows up and shame, and then we can evaluate our embarrassment. So in this chapter, there's a thing called social referencing, and that is really when we use others' emotional expressions to figure out how to respond. And we'll be looking at other people using some social learning, but it's so important for that to work, you need to be able to interpret others' expressions. Because if you're not able to, you might be looking at someone at a funeral and start laughing because you're like, I'm not sure what to do here. And you're misinterpreting what they're doing, which is crying. So another part of this chapter is emotional regulation. This is super important for your emotions. How do you control them? Maybe even as an adult, this is still something you work on daily, but it's super, super important. So emotional regulation is really just figuring out strategies to adjust our emotional state. This could be as basic as taking deep breaths or listening to music or just using coping skills and knowing where you're at. So as we're doing emotional regulation, primarily we use behavioral strategies in infancy. So we really rely on our caregivers as a young baby. Like our dad picks us up when we're crying, or our mom rocks us when we're feeling nervous. Um, there's sucking behavior at this time, like sucking your thumb or using a pacifier, as well as gaze aversion. So we turn our head away from the person who's making a funny face at us. As we cognitively develop more, then our regulation can become more internal. So we can have cognitive distraction where we think about something else. You think about, what you're going to do over the summer rather than getting upset about losing a toy. Another part of emotional regulation in this chapter is displaying rules. And so with displaying rules, we're really governing what, when, and why emotional expressions need to occur and how they need to occur. So these could be culturally specific, like joy might be inappropriate to express at a funeral in some cultures, whereas sadness might be inappropriate to express in others. So you have to know the culture you're in. This could be also faking an emotion at a certain time. So next part of this chapter I want to talk about is just the socialization of emotional competence. And so this is really effective at fostering emotional competence. So you can have big discussions. So asking questions about and providing explanations of emotional situations. I really like parents to model stressful or times that they've reached an angry zone with their children to say, hey, this is what it felt like. This is what led me up to it. These are my triggers, and here's some things I did to calm back down. So really having a conversation starts to help with emotional regulation. Also, validation of a child's emotions. I understand that you're mad at me. It's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to scream in my face. Here are some other things you can do when you're mad. Start to teach vocabulary around how to emotionally regulate. What we don't want to do is punish or dismiss feelings. That doesn't teach us anything about emotional regulation. Like, we can't go get ice cream if you're going to be sad. We're just teaching, like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to show you when I'm feeling sad and keep it inside. That's not good. Or dismissal, like, that's really nothing to cry about. I don't know why you're upset. We're letting our students or our children dictate what their feelings are. We're not going to do them for them. If that makes you feel upset that you can't find one of your shoes, then that makes you upset. Let's figure out how we can fix it. You don't need to dismiss that feeling. So another piece of this is emotion coaching, just really being aware of a child's emotions, recognizing their expression as an opportunity for teaching, listening with empathy, and really validating that child's feelings. Again, labeling emotions and really giving children vocabulary around what they're feeling is super, super important. And then helping children come up with age-appropriate ways to solve those problems. And that's not like, you lost your shoes, stop crying. It's, I've lost things before and it's made me upset. What I like to do is think about where could it be, make a list of places I might have left it, and then I go and check those places. So you're offering solutions. The last part of this I want to talk about is just really how peers impact our emotional competency. So if you remember back from our peer unit, peers are very powerful in that they provide reinforcement, punishment, observational learning opportunities, and they can almost act as a teacher. Teachers also impact emotional competency, probably just as much as parents, if not more. And so how we react to emotional expressions really has an impact on emotional competency for our students. So again, I'm a big believer in really talking about your feelings. And so if something is frustrating you, saying, wow, I'm feeling, really frustrated. I tell the kids, I really dislike traffic. And so I'm feeling really frustrated. I was in traffic today. So on the way here, I used the coping skill of listening to music. When I got in the door, I said 3 things I was grateful for, took some deep breaths. I'm not feeling as frustrated, but know that I was feeling frustrated before. And really just coaching them through your process as well. So that's our chapter today. Here's the song. Great job. Your paper's coming up in a little bit. And so I'm going to post a blog about that soon. Keep up the great work. Keep sending me emails. Don't forget, I do comment on your papers. So if you have any questions, the answers will be in there. And as always, feel free to email me. See ya.